another project that we're very excited to be showing you today. And this is in the UK. We're going to be going to Alice and Gavin Munro. They are the two people behind Full Grown. And we're very excited to be hearing more about this future, this preview into the future where we will be able to grow design and become more in symbiosis with nature. So Alice and Gavin, are you there?
It's raining out there, I see.
Hi there. Yes, we've been waiting for rain all week, and
obviously the rain has arrived now, just as you all arrive. So we haven't grown the umbrellas, and I think they were left behind by visitors. They're very floral, which usually is my taste, but anyway.
Well, we're very excited that you're with us today. So, and we're happy to be in the field with you. So we're looking forward to hearing what you have to say about your work.
Well, we'll have a little slideshow, and then we'll have a little a little tour around the field.
So apologies if the bandwidth isn't sufficient. Just everybody raise your hand and say if everything's going a little bit haywire, because we've had a couple of issues. Hopefully it'll be okay though.
Right. So can you see the, there we go. So, well, welcome. It's an absolute honour to have been part of the Labour of Love and to be talking with you today. We'd like to welcome you to our chair orchard. It's a little bit hard to see sometimes. So we've been turning the pictures upside down, which gives it a little bit easier to see, and sometimes it makes for some really nice photos. But it's also an excellent racetrack for our lovely Whippet Lena. So the idea of the project is a kind of combination of horticulture, art, ancient techniques, and just a hint of modern technology. We're trying to take a similar sort of leaf out of the book that Zoe Joe has been doing. It's looking back to before agriculture and at the very beginning, trying to see what went wrong early on. But what we've got is a kind of batch production meets delayed gratification, where I've been traveling and designing for a few years. I studied in Leeds a while ago, and a lot of this is sort of based on childhood experience in hospital. Alice was also born in the UK. She's lived in Germany and China.
I have no artistic or design background at all. I've worked in lots of industries, in education, you know, but lots of these things have combined to be very useful in this job. It's very interesting.
Without Alice, none of this would have happened. But the first seed was sown when I was a young boy. My parents had bonsai trees at the back, but with two young boys, you don't get much done, and they'd overgrown. And one of them, there was a silhouette that looked just like a throne, and that image really stuck in my mind. And I had plenty of time to think about it as I was in hospital having my spine re-straightened. But I was lucky enough to, one of the hospitals I was in was built into woodland. It was a gorgeous piece of architecture that the wards were in these lines, and so went out into the woodland. So from my bedside, I could see out into the woods, and I could see the birds and the badgers and the foxes. And on the other side, there was the outrageously impressive kindness, competence, and just vigor of the nursing staff. And you know, you can imagine being a young boy there most of the time on your own, and the combination of these sort of the nurturing and the kindness and the competence and the nature was a real inspiration for further down the road. So by the time I went to study art and design, I really wanted to join those designing for a stable and considerate society, as well as developing a lifelong love of spotting patterns in nature. And it was at university where we started looking into materials, where there was a point where we realized that wood is essentially solid air, soil, and sunshine. And so thanks to photosynthesis, trees are essentially a kind of 3D printer, a Zen 3D printer with material and machine all in one. And this really kind of stuck with me, but didn't quite know what to do with it. So I went off traveling to California, building straw bale buildings, which was a wonderful project. But while I was there, I built up a sort of driftwood furniture habit. And as you can see, got quite into it. But there was a point of realizing that, hold on a minute, it's okay. It's actually the way that we build things is really slow and inefficient to get to this point. The way that we make chairs and furniture, we chop trees into smaller and smaller pieces just to stick them back together again. So I think before we go any further, it's worth having a little think that what does it actually take to turn a tree into a chair? Well, to start with, somebody planted your tree 50 years ago, or as often as not, we cut into virgin woodland. So before you've even got a log, you've got to build roads into those woodlands, and that's already a whole bunch of machinery. And then finally you can actually get in and start cutting these trees up. But that's a whole bunch of stuff before we've just got a log. Then, well, and then when you cut it out, you can see this is just around the corner from us where we live. This is what happens when you clear out forest. The whole thing is gone. But then those logs, they need to be taken to the sawmill and then driven again, often to a kiln, which is essentially a giant oven with all the energy you can imagine that taking. Then it's shipped again off to the store, and it's only then it's shipped again to your workshop, and only then with more machines, more tools, can we start to make our wood into smaller and smaller bits with tons of tools. All of them need to be made, but we're getting there with our chair. We're slowly making smaller bits, but then once you've finally got a chair, then it's often sprayed and coated and needs to be shipped again to the store. So that's quite a lot of stuff to go from tree to chair. And all of that stuff, that all needs making. So that's more factories, more shipping, and resources. Lots and lots of resources, which really doesn't leave that much room for the natural world. And now this chair's in your home, how long is it really going to last? The more components there are, the more parts there is to break, and the sooner that may happen. So why do we bother cutting trees into smaller bits at all? Why not just shape and graft each tree as it grows? It won't take so long. There's no growing for 50 years. There's no waste. Almost everything will compost and provide nourishment for the soil. And it will be stronger because all the joints have grown into one solid piece. And thanks to the Stone Age technique of coppicing, with the right species, they'll grow right back after harvest. So what is tree shaping? Well, we've been doing this for thousands and thousands of years. The oldest thing that we know of is Native American Indians bending the trees and using the form that comes from that when the new shoots grow as trail markers. It's really, really rather beautiful and incredibly simple. So the techniques that we use, though, are coppicing, which is a method in which the tree's grown and cut back in the winter. And then new shoots will grow up. And it's those that we use for shaping our chairs, but they grow straight and people have been using them for firewood and structures. The next technique we use is grafting, which is often seen in fields of roses and apples and vineyards. And usually what people do is they graft one thing onto a rootstock, and then you have 4 parts. You want to keep the top of one and the bottom of the other. We've been sort of experimenting with something a little bit different that we'll show you later. And then there's Espalier, which is an ancient horticultural practice where we control woody growth for the production of fruit and vineyards by tying branches to a frame. So essentially what we're doing is a sort of combination of these things. But people have been bending trees for millennia. We've been growing ships' timbers and growing trees as they curve and copying those down. There's evidence that the Qing dynasty, instead of actually shaping the trees, they dug big holes in the ground and used roots and into a chair shape. So you can see here's an example from later on. And the ancient Greeks, they grew stools, as far as we understand, there was frustratingly no pictures. But in more recent times, there's in 1901, there was an American called John Krubsack who used 20 trees and grew them into one solid. He's the first person that we know of that grew one solid chair. And after doing this for 15 years now, we can totally see why his nickname was Damn It. Then there was Axel Anderson in the 1950s in California. He died. He figured the whole lot out, how to grow chairs, all the things that we've been learning, but he died without telling anyone how to do it, which he regretted on his deathbed. It was a real shame. Later on, there's Becky North and Peter Cook. They didn't make that mistake, and their book is an excellent place to start if you're interested in doing this. And then there is the fantastic Dr. Chris Cattle, who we've had the pleasure of meeting and working with a few times. So, yeah, we thought, how hard can it be? Surely we can, in fact, just grow a chair. So here you can see this is where we are at the moment. This is where we started, and slowly over 15 years we've turned this into a chair orchard. And here you can see we have several dining sets growing in here. But we'll have a proper tour in a second. So what are our environmental impacts? Well, there's the frame around which each product grows. The orchard requires maintenance year-round. And once harvested, each product requires drying, then sanding, oiling, and polishing. And because our factory is essentially a neatly organized forest, we actually absorb more CO2 than we use. It's a real bonus. So remember all this from earlier? With less tools, less machinery, there's less things that we actually need. And so hopefully much more space and opportunity for the natural world. And in fact, most of the time, this is pretty much all we actually need to use. So for once, on occasion, the grass is actually greener on our side of the fence. And there's been not just chairs growing. We've had, this is one of the nests from the very first lamps that we grew. And I think, hopefully, you can see a little video. These were the birds when they opened up. It's one of the best moments of the whole project. It's lovely. But, oh, it's so sweet. There's lots of other wildlife. There's wasps, which at the first were a real pain, but they eat aphids, which is fantastic. And there's all sorts of beautiful other things that we've discovered living with us here in the orchard. It's especially nice when there's birds nesting in the pieces. And here you can see this is how we harvest our chairs. In some ways, it's really quite simple, just one cut. So we've had a few harvests now. Here are some of our prototypes we've got around. There's the Edwards chair in Beijing. And we finally started being able to harvest pieces that are sturdy enough to sit in. It's a real relief. But I think one of the main questions that people are going to ask is how long does it actually take to grow a chair? And it's roughly 6 to 9 years and then another year to dry out slowly. So it's quite a long time to do. But at the same time, if you imagine growing a tree for 50 years to cut it down again into smaller pieces, by that point, we've actually had several generations harvested by then. Oh, and we've got some wonderful shipping cases. But what's evolving here is a kind of biophilic design language, which, as we're all aware here today, that the Earth really, really needs, and we're incredibly proud to be a part of. There's some wonderful other people doing these things. Diana Shearer, who you saw with the Labour of Love. There's Jeff Diego Litherland and Anna Howard McLaren, who are artists here in Wirksworth, who are growing their own flax and weaving their own canvases to make their artwork. It's utterly beautiful. There's Laura Gatti, who was the agronomist from the Bosco Verticale, who's helping create vertical forests that have birds and bees living in them on the 23rd floor. It's utterly amazing. And as we've just seen, Zoe Jo Ray is making some amazing things with the mess that we've left over. And I think the bigger picture here is was hit on by Lisa White, who we exhibited with a few years ago with her Me, You, New exhibition. But the idea is that it really is never too late to do one discussion. And the fact that there will be a seat at the table for everyone is really, really important. And as far as I can tell, we envisage two futures. One of them has a party celebrating 1,000 years of peace. And our purpose here is to start making the chairs for this party. Imagine the beautiful food, clothes, objects we could make in 1,000 years of peace. So for something that started life as an art project, we really feel can now work anywhere trees can grow and be essentially an uber green value-added cash crop that is, with luck, creating a subtle and elegant relationship with nature. So thank you very much for the slides. I'm going to go and grab the camera and we'll have a little tour around the field. Yeah.
Yep. Sorry, I'm just going to try and stop sharing this so that we can share on the other. Except I've lost my cursor. Terribly sorry.
Hi there. Hi. Can you see okay from here then?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Here we are. Well, welcome to the orchard. You can see it's the first time we've managed to do a presentation from actually sitting on a grown chair. It was really quite nice. So here's our cabin. There we go. And with luck, there's Lena, our most helpful assistant. And let's come take a little tour around the field. So this is one of our very early experiments.
So there's the entry point. That's where everything starts happening. And what's really important to learn and to develop is that we get the perfect balance between the two parts so that when they meet, they're each the same thickness. So that's where they've grafted, and that should be really, really, really strong. So as we were talking about earlier, that joints in normal chairs just come apart over time, but we think that, like a broken bone mending more thickly, we think that's really, really sturdy. So we'll carry on through some more of the experiments. It's all, you can hear a lot of bird song. There's a whole lot of beautiful stuff going on. Here's some willow, a little bit frostbitten. It's been a very unusual year weather-wise. You can see all the coppicing, all the new shoots are all sprouting up, lovely little bright green shoots. All of the energy stored from the roots below is pushing itself out. Got some beautiful chandeliers here. Whole lot of experiments going on. You can see we've done a whole lot of coppicing recently. We've got a lot of pheasants having a good lot of fighting here. I haven't really been able to resist planting more flowers. We've also got some jostaberries, which were a cross between a blackcurrant and a gooseberry, which theoretically are for us to eat, but the birds seem to
seem to eat quite a lot of them, really.
To get there quite quickly. Oh, should we just go back to this chair here? So here's a beach chair. I'll just demonstrate. Here's the seat back. There's the seat itself. And then here we have legs. There are some others which I'll show you, which might be easier to see. So part of the project has become much more about wildlife. This is the area here. In normal years, this is quite boggy. This is where we're planning to have a pond, but we haven't got there yet. Hopefully we'll have a washing up bowl pond this summer. A couple of chandeliers. The one on the left is based on a design from a mosque in Shiraz in Iran. Beautiful geometric nature, really nice. And there's the other chandelier that'll be harvested quite soon.
Yeah, we're quite excited for this harvest. It'll be lovely.
So we've been doing a lot of coppicing this winter. And the second best thing you can do to help wildlife is to leave some nice piles of wood about. So luckily, we've
we have some huge piles of wood.
A lot of grass, which will be lots of lovely habitat for all of the birds and beasties around and about. Here we've got a beautiful, beautiful ash tree. Hopefully, we think, hopefully immune to ash dieback. We're not sure. But here's one of those trees that would just normally be chopped down and made into some timber. If you look behind, there's the ash that has succumbed to ash dieback. This whole row has been coppiced.
It's a real shame. Yeah.
We'll move along from that rather depressing site, and we'll look at some more sturdy items here. So this is a large chair. One might even call it a throne, but that's looking really good now. It's really really brave coming along. And we're sort of stepping through the rows a little bit to show you the best that we can. Oh, here's a really lovely thing. So quite a lot of the time we'll find a nest. Here's the remnants of a nest from last year, and I just found a blackbird egg, so I put it in there just to demonstrate it was a nest. Some really vigorous growth coming through. Some beautiful things happening here. There's another.
Oh, here are some experiments.
Well, a lot of experiments all around about the place. Avert my eyes for more ash dieback. Here's a beautiful beauty. This is a hazel. Hazel's one of the trees that have been used for coppicing a whole lot. This is just looking gorgeous. It brings when you use coppicing, it brings out some really straight shoots. So here's the chair back, here's the seat, and the legs will come out here. So it's all looking fabulous, really. We'll come back to the issues with that design in a moment. So we're just gonna walk along. Now these are really pretty. Here is an apple table.
Sort of see the start of it there.
So if you can see, this would be the table top, but it's growing upside down. So that's the line that would be the table. And then here are some of the legs. But obviously I'm very excited because there are flowers.
Yeah, we've got little blossoms on the legs. It's wonderful.
It's really nice to see the apples growing on the chairs as well. Really good.
They were really tasty last year as well. It's fantastic.
Which has given us the indication that they aren't crab apple, which we always thought. We may have just gone.
Yes, they were far too delicious for that.
Cherry, very, very pretty. Doesn't naturally lend itself to tree shaping though, so we're just letting that go, be something for the wildlife. Here we are, we're coming along. To the left of us we're building up a hedge. So here we go. Here's some wild roses, which will provide lots of food for pollinators, and rose hips at the end of the year for the birds. Very
there we go.
important.
Really important here.
This is hedgehog poo. We adopted 2 hedgehogs a few summers ago. They disappeared immediately. So the only real evidence we have that they still live here is we find little presents from time to time. Extra fertilizer, very good.
There's another. It's just what you all wanted to see. So sorry.
This must be the hedgehog path.
Yeah.
Here's another crab apple, which is just beautiful, very exciting. So round to the right of us, there are some bits and pieces being cultivated. We changed what we were cultivating throughout. Oh gee, can I just show? Here's a lovely herb here called bugle or self-heal. It's known as carpenter's friend as well, because apparently it will slow bleeding. We're trying not to find out too much about that. But there are also lots of beautiful bluebells. And
there we go.
Anyway, so here we are, row 10. I'm going to show you the biggest piece we've got so far. I think there might be a pheasant nest along there.
Yeah, there is. There was a beautiful moment earlier where we found some pheasants. Anyway, sorry, that's a little distraction.
So, here we go. Here's the largest piece that we're growing so far. This is another beautiful apple table. So here we are. You can see the line which will be the tabletop, and a whole load of legs growing. And again, beautiful little apple blossom, which is really just gorgeous.
But this is a great example of, well, why we grow them upside down, so that it goes from one shoot to many, which makes sort of sense for the tree. But it also shows just how complex it is quite difficult to see the wood for the trees, as it were. There, I think you've got some idea of the table there.
Here are some bluebells. We haven't mown yet this year, which is proving to be beautiful. We've got a whole lot of bluebells here. The Hyacinthoides non-scripta, I'm hoping, which is the English bluebell, not the hybrid, which is so invasive. Here's a lovely hazel chair, looking really good.
It's on its way. Oh, there's the pheasant. Oh, well, it's gone. There was a pheasant. Yeah.
So Gavin, I think that we're almost losing the connection in this.
Oh,
you're back.
Okay.
That's okay. It's just cutting out a little bit. But one of the questions from the audience was if you'd ever considered growing a tree house.
Well, we'd like to, but thankfully somebody's already doing that.
There's a gentleman called Ferdinand Ludwig who he's been looking into using trees to provide the structure for buildings. It's really, really interesting. He's a he was an architect and then became very interested in trees, and he's actually using them to make structures. He's brilliant. Ferdinand Ludwig, very worth looking into.
But it's time consuming enough growing a chair. A whole building is the next level, I think, for us.
It's kind of a different discipline, I think.
Yes, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
To some degree, what we want to do is grow our pieces as fast as possible. So that, because when you graft them together, they instantly start changing and slowing down. So in some ways, growing a tree house is great on one level, but there's a different set of skills required to keep that shape going. And yeah, having done what we've done, I can realize that that is an epic, absolutely epic thing to grow a house. But oh, we've missed the chin at the top.
Philip, how are we doing for time? We've got a few more little bits to show, but I don't want to help us overrun.
We are sort of almost out of time, but if it's something mesmerizing, of course we'll.
Well, there's one last row of we'll go up and down one. So
these are the chairs that we started cultivating in 2013. So we've harvested from the 2012 cultivation and the 2013 cultivation. These ones we're calling the long stripe because, if you can see,
because they grow in a long stripe.
Well, we thought that was the most simple way for the trees and also the best way for the personnel, because it was fewer cuts on the hands. But actually now we're looking at it, we're not so certain that it's the great design for actual comfort as a practical sitting place.
Yeah, there's a long sort of discovery path of, it was 2013 that we started doing that, and only this summer that we've learnt the lesson. But
and here is also our quick cash crop that we started cultivating in 2012. As you can see, it's not being the quick cash crop we hoped for. We're learning all the things about the trees over and over again. Willow, we've learnt, does not like lying flat. So here it is. We will be harvesting quite a lot of these soon so that we can actually finally move on from those. And
well, should we wrap up and head back to the chair?
I wanted to know, can you do chairs longer?
Long?
Oh, well, yes, I think we can.
Okay.
We'll let you know in a decade.
Okay, well, Philip, maybe for my 80th birthday, you can order one.
Order now.
Order now.
Yeah, order now. Only 1 decade. Oh, here's a. But yes, this is the first time that we actually did a talk from one of the grown chairs.
Nice.
Really nice.
Tool is nice also.
So, yeah. So, well, thank you very much for putting up with us. There's our chair orchard.
Thanks so much for inviting us, and thanks for all of the exciting things that you've shown us. We can't wait to catch up with everything. We missed a few little bits while we were scurrying around with technical issues, but thanks so much. Dankjewel and tot ziens.
Dankjewel. It has been yeah, brilliant.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
And the sun's back now.
Exactly. Yeah. There's some lovely sunsets up here.
Yeah.
Okay then.
Enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Val.
Thank you so much, Alice and Gavin.